Failure is often one of the most feared experiences in life, yet in Napoleon Hill's philosophy, it becomes one of the most instructive. When he says that defeat should be accepted as a signal that something is wrong with your plan, he is pointing to a profound truth about human progress. Failure is not proof that you are incapable, unworthy, or permanently defeated. Instead, it is feedback from the universe, a redirection, and an opportunity to reflect on what went wrong and how it can be improved. Many people interpret failure as finality, believing that one rejection, one lost opportunity, or one failed venture means they are not cut out for success. Hill encourages a very different perspective. He reminds us that every setback carries within it a lesson, often hidden in plain sight, that can help shape a more effective strategy for the future. To rebuild yourself in the aftermath of failure, the first step is to recognize it not as an end, but as a temporary event, message rather than a verdict. When you encounter defeat, it is vital to separate your identity from the event. Too often, people internalize setbacks and believe that they themselves are the failure. This kind of thinking can be paralyzing because it makes you less willing to try again. But when you frame failure as a signal, you create emotional distance. You start to see that it is your approach, your plan, or your execution that needs adjusting, not your worth as a person. This perspective fosters resilience. Think of Thomas Edison, who famously tested thousands of filaments before finding the right one for the light bulb. Each unsuccessful trial was not a defeat of his character. It was a signal that the current method was not effective. He treated each setback as information rather than condemnation. Hill's message pushes us to adopt this same outlook in our own lives, whether we are pursuing personal goals, business ventures, or even relationships. Failure as a signal also emphasizes the importance of analysis. When a plan does not succeed, the worst reaction is to give up without reflection. Hill suggests instead that one must pause, observe, and learn. What part of the plan was flawed? Was the goal clear enough? Was the strategy aligned with available resources? Did external conditions change in a way that required adaptation? These are the kinds of questions that transform defeat into a stepping stone. By treating setbacks as diagnostic tools, you train yourself to think critically and strategically. This builds not only persistence, but also wisdom, because every attempt teaches you something new about the path forward. The key lies in resisting the impulse to view defeat emotionally, and instead approaching it analytically, almost scientifically. Another dimension of Hill's perspective is the recognition that failure is a universal experience. No one escapes it. Every successful person, from inventors to entrepreneurs to leaders, has faced multiple defeats before achieving their goals. This truth is liberating because it removes the stigma attached to failure. If it is universal, then it is not a mark of weakness, but a shared rite of passage. Hill reframes failure as proof that you are attempting something meaningful, something beyond your comfort zone. In fact, the absence of failure often means the absence of risk, which also implies the absence of growth. By facing defeat, you are already ahead of those who never try, those who play safe and avoid the discomfort of setbacks. Failure, therefore, becomes evidence of courage and ambition, and the signal it provides is a reward that others who avoid risk will never receive. Rebuilding yourself in the wake of failure requires cultivating persistence. This is where many people stumble, because the emotional toll of defeat can be heavy. But if you see failure as a signal, it loses its destructive weight, and instead becomes energizing. It tells you, this way is blocked, but another way exists. Hill's insight here is subtle yet powerful. The signal of failure does not say abandon the journey. It says choose another route. By reframing it this way, you maintain momentum toward your goal instead of abandoning it altogether. Persistence built on this understanding creates a mindset where every failure is folded back into the process of success. Each setback becomes not a barrier, but a recalibration point, guiding you closer to the correct path. Failure also sharpens adaptability. In life, conditions are always changing, markets shift, technologies evolve, people's needs transform. A plan that worked yesterday may not work tomorrow. Failure highlights this reality and forces you to evolve along with circumstances. In this sense, failure as a signal makes you more dynamic, teaching you to remain flexible rather than rigid. It encourages innovation because once you see that the old way is ineffective, you are compelled to find a new one. Many breakthroughs arise precisely because someone refused to see failure as final and instead used it as a catalyst for creative problem solving. This adaptive quality is one of the most valuable skills you can develop, and failure is the primary training ground for it. Embracing failure as a signal also fosters humility. Success can sometimes make people overconfident, leading them to ignore flaws in their strategies or overestimate their abilities. Failure strips away illusions and forces honesty. It makes you confront uncomfortable truths about yourself, your methods, or your assumptions. This humility is not weakness, it is a strength because it clears away arrogance and opens space for growth. In the rebuilding process, humility allows you to accept advice, learn from mentors, and consider new perspectives you might have previously dismissed. Hill's philosophy ties directly into this. The greatest achievements are often built on foundations of previous mistakes, corrected through self-awareness and humility. Finally, seeing failure as a signal reinforces the idea that success is a journey rather than a single event. Every defeat you encounter is a checkpoint, not a dead end. It shows you where you are and points toward where you need to go next. This understanding reduces the pressure to get everything right on the first try. It acknowledges the iterative nature of growth, where trial and error is not just tolerated but essential. The process of rebuilding yourself after each defeat gradually develops qualities, resilience, wisdom, adaptability, persistence, that are just as important as the external goal you are chasing. In fact, these qualities often outlast the specific goal and serve you across multiple areas of life. Hill's insight that defeat is a signal encapsulates this entire philosophy. Failure is not a final judgment, but a guidepost on the road to becoming stronger, wiser, and more capable.
They move with. Mental strength isn't something you are born with. It's a trait you build, sharpen, and fortify through discipline. They move with. Napoleon Hill emphasized again and again that true success begins with mastering your thoughts and actions. The weak version of yourself thrives in comfort zones, avoids resistance, and reacts impulsively. To kill that version, they move with. You must cultivate a kind of discipline that transcends fleeting motivation with. Discipline is about doing what must be done, whether you feel like it or not. It means prioritizing long-term growth over short-term pleasure. This isn't always glamorous. In fact, it often feels like drudgery. But each small act of discipline is a quiet rebellion against your weaker self. Move with. And each decision to show up with focus and intention is a chisel against the stone of self-doubt. The mind is like a muscle they move with, and discipline is the weightlifting program that strengthens it. When you resist the pull of laziness, they move with. When you ignore the tempting voice that says, just one more hour of sleep, or, you can skip this one time, you're breaking old patterns. They move with. Those patterns are the roots of weakness, and unless you challenge them daily, they grow stronger. They move with. Hill often taught that the man who can control his own mind is greater than the one who conquers nations. They move with. That's because external victories begin with internal battles. You will never build a strong life with a weak mind. Discipline means controlling your thoughts. Thoughts, if left unchecked, spiral into doubt, fear, procrastination, and failure. But if directed properly, they can transform into courage, action, and progress. One way to discipline the mind is through structured habits. It starts with something as basic as waking up early, sticking to a schedule, or committing to a task list. Even when nobody's watching. They move the X, seem small, but over time, they reshape the narrative you hold about yourself. They move with you go from being someone who tries to someone who follows through. You become dependable to yourself. They move with, which is more important than being dependable to others. Mental strength also means learning to sit in discomfort. The weak version of yourself will always search for escape. It craves distraction, sugar, scrolling, noise. They move with. The strong version of you is built in silence, forged in moments of discipline where no one else applauds you. They move with. When you choose to focus on work rather than scrolling social media. They move with. When you keep pushing through a difficult task instead of quitting. That's when you're expanding your mental endurance. They move with. Discomfort becomes a training ground. The more you embrace it, the less power it has over you. They move with. Another critical part of mental strength is emotional discipline. This means not reacting impulsively to every trigger. They move with. Weakness is allowing your emotions to dictate your behavior. Strength is feeling deeply, but still choosing wisely. They move with. You don't lash out because you're angry. You don't quit because you're discouraged. You don't brag because you're proud. Instead, they move with. You channel those emotions. You turn anger into determination, discouragement into reflection, pride into confidence. They move with. This doesn't mean becoming emotionless. It means learning to become the master of your emotional state rather than its servant. Discipline also involves consistency, which is one of the rarest forms of strength. Anyone can be motivated for a day. Anyone can have a great week, but consistency, showing up daily, especially when no results are visible, is what separates the elite from the average. They move. Napoleon Hill often pointed out that the universe tests those who desire success. It wants to know, are you serious? Are you ready? Will you persist through adversity? Consistency is your answer. It says, yes, I will keep going. They move with, no matter what. Think of mental strength like sharpening a blade. Each time you choose discipline, you file away weakness. With each act compounds. Day by day, your edge becomes sharper. But if you stop, the blade dulls again. They move with. The weak version of you will always linger in the background, waiting for you to slip. It wants you to sleep in. It wants you to compromise. It wants you to stay comfortable. Discipline kills that voice. It says, not today. I've come too far. I'm not going back. The discipline is not about punishment. It's about liberation. When you are disciplined, you're not at the mercy of your moods or impulses. You gain freedom. Freedom to work hard now and enjoy the benefits later. Freedom to stay calm when others panic. Freedom to focus while others are distracted. That freedom is power, and it doesn't come easy. It must be earned, protected. Hill's philosophy also reinforces the idea of definiteness of purpose. When you know where you're going, discipline becomes the bridge. Without discipline, even the best intentions fade. So if you want to build mental strength, attach your discipline to a higher purpose. They move with. Don't just exercise because you should. Exercise because it sharpens your mind for the bigger vision. They move with. Don't just wake up early for productivity. Do it to gain hours of focused time to build the future you believe in. Purpose breathes life into your discipline. They move with. One of the reasons so many people remain stuck in the weak version of themselves is because they've never proven to themselves what's possible. They move with. Discipline changes that. With every task completed, every day you keep your word, every time you overcome resistance, you gain evidence. That evidence becomes belief. Eventually, that belief rewires your identity. And soon enough, the weak version of you doesn't just fade. It dies. They move with. Because it no longer fits the person you've become. Hill would say that the man who masters himself becomes invincible, not because life is easy, but because he is prepared. And preparation comes from discipline. There is no substitute, no shortcut. They move with. If you want to kill the weak version of you, you must earn it. With every early morning, every hard decision, every delayed gratification, they move with. You must become the person who does the hard things willingly, not for the prop loss, but for the progress. Discipline is your sword. Move with. Mental strength is your armor. The weak version of you has no place in the life you're building. So pick up your tools. Get to work. The stronger version is waiting. They move with. The power of thought is the birthplace of every action, every decision, and ultimately, every destiny. They move with. Napoleon Hill's foundational philosophy rests on the idea that what you repeatedly think, you become. The weak version of yourself thrives on passive, undirected, and negative thoughts, allowing doubt, fear, and indecision to shape your mindset. To kill that version, you must learn to take conscious control of your thoughts. Thought is not abstract, it is energy. And like any energy, it can be focused, refined, or wasted. Your mind, left untrained, will gravitate toward limitations. It will find excuses instead of solutions, and comfort instead of growth. They move with. Mastering the power of thought means recognizing that every belief, behavior, and result begins with an idea. They move with. By changing your internal dialogue and mental images, you change your external reality. Your dominant thoughts act as a magnet. Move with. When your internal world is saturated with visions of success, clarity, and strength, your subconscious mind begins to shape your habits to match. With, you start noticing opportunities you previously ignored. You start attracting people, experiences, and ideas that align with your focus. On the flip side, negative thinking closes doors. It weakens your ability to act. If you're always thinking about what could go wrong, they move with. You become hesitant. You shrink in the face of uncertainty. Hill emphasized that fear is the greatest enemy of success, and fear begins in thought. With the person who constantly thinks about failure is already halfway defeated before ever taking a step. Mastering thought begins with awareness. Move with. Most people move through life on mental autopilot. Their thoughts are shaped by media, gossip, distractions, and past experiences. But conscious thought control means stepping back and asking, what am I thinking right now? Is this thought helping me or hurting me? Is it rooted in truth or assumption? Is it empowering or limiting? That level of introspection requires discipline. They move with, but it's where transformation begins. Once you're aware of your inner dialogue, they move with, you can begin the process of replacing limiting beliefs with empowering ones. Affirmations are a powerful tool in this process. Not as blind repetition, but as strategic mental reprogramming. When you repeat phrases like, I am capable of change, or I am disciplined and focused, you're not lying to yourself, you're planting seeds. They move with. Every affirmation is a conscious effort to override the subconscious programming of doubt and weakness. Eventually, with repetition and emotional intensity, these new thoughts take root. Your identity begins to shift. They move with. And you start to act in alignment with your new beliefs. Visualization is another method Hill advocated for. To truly master thought, you must not only think better, you must see better. Visualize yourself strong, confident, and in control. Picture the actions you want to take. They move with. Imagine yourself waking early, completing your goals, handling stress with grace. The mind cannot distinguish vividly imagined experiences from real ones, and this principle gives you the power to rehearse success before it happens. They move with. Athletes use this. CEOs use this. The future version of yourself, the strong discipline. They move, successful one, can only emerge if you've mentally created that image first. Thought mastery also involves filtering what enters your mind. They garbage in, garbage out. If you constantly surround yourself with noise, negative people, low-value content, fear-based media, you weaken your mental environment. Just as a clean diet fuels a strong body, a clean mental diet fuels a powerful mind. Move with. That means being selective about what you read, watch, and discuss. Hill emphasized the importance of a mastermind group, a circle of individuals who inspire, uplift, and challenge your thinking. Move with. Surround yourself with people whose minds are focused on growth, and your thoughts will rise to match. Thoughts must also translate into action. A powerful idea without execution is just a fantasy. The weak version of you may dream, but it never acts. It's content with planning, but never doing. Mastery of thought isn't just about optimism. It's about converting that optimism into steps. Start small. Take the ideas that stir you and build daily habits around them. Thought, backed by emotion and action, is the formula Hill believed in. That's how you impress the subconscious mind. That's how change becomes lasting. You'll also need to confront inner resistance. They move with. The stronger your thoughts become, the louder the inner critic will shout. It will tell you that you're faking it, that nothing will change, that you're not meant for more. This voice is the echo of the weak version of yourself. It clings to old patterns because it fears transformation. But every time you choose a thought that empowers you, you silence that voice, you weaken its grip, you build mental muscle. Over time, your new dominant thoughts, of strength, clarity, and purpose, become your baseline. Emotion plays a key role in thought mastery. Thoughts become magnetic when infused with feeling. If you simply say, I'm going to change, without conviction, your mind won't take it seriously. But if you feel the urgency, see the vision, and believe the possibility, your thoughts gain weight. They move with. Hill taught that emotionalized thoughts are the ones that imprint on the subconscious. Use your emotions as fuel. Don't run from pain. Use it to reinforce your vision. Don't ignore joy. Use it to energize your actions. They move with. The more emotionally charged your thoughts are, the more likely they are to drive results. Lastly, patience and persistence are non-negotiable. Move with. Your old patterns were built over years. Killing the weak version of yourself isn't a one-day job. It's a battle waged thought by thought, hour by hour. Some days you'll slip. That's expected. What matters is returning to the path. Re-centering your thoughts. Reaffirming your vision. They move with. Thought mastery is a lifelong process, but each day you control your mind is a day you move away from weakness and towards strength. You don't need to wait to begin. Right now, this very moment, you can pause and choose a new thought. You can choose clarity over confusion, a courage over fear, discipline over distraction. That choice, repeated consistently, is the true secret of transformation. They move the mind as your most powerful tool, but only if you learn to direct it. Every day that you think intentionally, you move further away from the old version of you, the one that hesitated, doubted, and quit, and closer to the version that acts, believes, and achieves. Discipline is the invisible force that separates those who succeed from those who merely dream. It is not talent, luck, or intelligence that consistently propels individuals to greatness. It is the ability to do what must be done, regardless of mood, convenience, or comfort. The weak version of yourself operates on impulse. It seeks short-term gratification, avoids discomfort, and negotiates with laziness. They move with. To kill that version, you must become a disciplined thinker and doer. They move with. Napoleon Hill emphasized repeatedly that self-discipline is the foundation upon which all success is built. Without it, they move with. Even the most ambitious goals remain unattainable. Discipline begins in the smallest choices. Waking up on time when your body craves sleep. Saying no to distractions when your goals demand focus. Choosing work over comfort. Each of these moments is a fork in the road they move with. Do you side with the weak self or the strong self? The weak version of you wants to hit snooze, scroll endlessly, and procrastinate. It thrives on excuses and justifications. It tells you, you deserve a break, when in fact, you've been on one far too long. They move with. The disciplined version of you doesn't entertain negotiations. It commits, follows through, and repeats that process until discipline becomes second nature. Self-discipline is not about perfection. It's about consistency. They move with. It's not about doing everything right, but doing the right things even when you don't feel like it. That's what creates transformation. They move with. Hill's message is clear: you do not rise to your level of desire. You fall to your level of discipline. You might want to change your life, get fit. They move with. Earn more money, build a business, or overcome fear. But desire alone won't do it. Only discipline will get you there. Move with. You must train yourself to act even when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, or uncertain. To develop true discipline, you need structure. Systems beat motivation every time. If you wait to feel motivated to do the hard things, you'll rarely do them. But if you create a system, waking up at the same time, setting non-negotiable hours for work, they move with. Scheduling reading or learning blocks, you free yourself from emotion-based decision-making. Move with. Discipline thrives in environments that are predictable and intentional. Remove the mental friction by eliminating the decision-making process. Don't ask, do I feel like doing this? Ask, what did I plan to do? And am I doing it? The path to discipline is often uncomfortable. That's by design. Growth lives on the edge of your current capacity. The more often you push through discomfort, the more resilient and focused you become. At first, it will feel unnatural to reject comfort. But in time, they move with. The discomfort of discipline becomes familiar, almost welcome. You stop fearing hard things and start embracing them. You begin to crave progress more than pleasure. You start to value integrity more than ease. You understand that every time you choose discipline, they move with, you're taking another swing at the weak version of yourself and weakening its grip on you. Temptation is a test. The move with the world is full of distractions specifically designed to rob you of focus. Social media, entertainment, junk food, gossip, comfort zones. Each one is a doorway back into mediocrity. The undisciplined mind sees these things as harmless escapes. The disciplined mind sees them as poison dressed as pleasure. You must become ruthless about protecting your energy, your time, and your standards. They move with. That means saying no to things most people say yes to. That means missing out on short-term enjoyment to build long-term greatness. They move with. That means being misunderstood or even mocked by others who still live by impulse. Discipline also means owning your choices. No more blaming circumstances, upbringing, or external forces. Hill taught that personal responsibility is non-negotiable for those who want success. They move with. When you blame others, you give away your power. When you own your decisions, you gain control. The weak version of you always has someone or something else to blame. The disciplined version says, it's on me, and I can change it. That mindset shift is liberating. It puts you back in the driver's seat of your life. Repetition is the mother of discipline. You don't become disciplined by reading a quote or watching a video. You become disciplined by doing the right thing over and over again until it's a habit. They move with. Repetition rewires the brain. Every time you push through resistance, you reinforce a new identity. You start to see yourself differently, not as someone who tries, but as someone who follows through. And identity is everything they move with. Once you believe you're disciplined, your actions begin to align automatically. That's the tipping point. That's when change becomes sustainable. The enemy of discipline is emotional decision-making. If your choices are ruled by how you feel in the moment, you'll constantly fall short. They move with. Hill warned against allowing moods to dictate actions. Feelings are fleeting, results are not. When you operate from discipline, they move with. You act according to principle, not preference. You write even when you're tired. You study even when it's boring. They move with. You train even when it's raining. You move forward because that's what you committed to. Your emotions follow your actions, not the other way around. You also need to track your discipline. What gets measured gets managed. Keep a journal. They move with. A checklist or a scoreboard. Each day, mark whether you did what you said you would do. They move with. Not only does this keep you accountable, it gives you proof that you're changing. The weak version of yourself has no evidence of progress. The disciplined version keeps receipts. It doesn't rely on hope. It knows what it's doing and where it's going. Over time, those small daily wins compound. The person who once struggled to complete one task becomes the person who dominates every day. Surroundings matter too. Discipline is contagious. If you're around lazy, excuse-filled, pleasure-seeking people, their habits will infect you. They move with. But if you're around committed, focused, high-standard people, they'll pull you up. They move with. Hill's concept of the mastermind wasn't just about collaboration. It was about accountability. When you're in the presence of disciplined people, slacking becomes uncomfortable. You're forced to rise. You're inspired to match their standards. So audit your environment. Cut out the anchors and surround yourself with engines. Most importantly, discipline must come from within. Move with. External pressure can spark short-term change, but only internal commitment creates lasting transformation. They move with. You must want it badly enough to say no to what's easy and yes to what's essential. You must see discipline not as a burden, but as a privilege. The disciplined version of you doesn't feel trapped. It feels free. Free from regret, chaos, and stagnation. Free to build, grow, and lead. They move with. Every act of discipline is a declaration that you are no longer willing to be ruled by weakness. When you understand that, they move with. You'll stop waiting for the right time. You'll stop negotiating with your lower self. You'll start taking action. They move with. Not because it's easy, but because you've decided that nothing is more important than becoming who you're meant to be. They move with. Discipline is not the enemy. It's the weapon. And with it, you kill the weak version of yourself, one decisive act at a time.